Thank you very much. It's great to see a lot of people here today, especially groups that I've worked with over the years in developing their ideas and projects. And it'll be great to hear from more of you today in terms of ideas you might have for funding. But I want to have a look today, and it's very difficult following that kind of sobering presentation, about a very specific aspect of Britain's history. And so I'm going to unpack today, really, why diversity matters as a funder and how we've sought to support it over the years. So the Heritage Lottery Fund invests in the full breadth of the UK's heritage. And through our funding, we aim to make a lasting difference for both heritage and for people. This is reflected in the outcomes for heritage people and communities which underpin our grant making. And we give extra consideration to projects achieving those outcomes, such as learning, as well as widening and diversifying engagement. And that's where we place the most value. We'll continue to invest in heritage that people value and broaden the range and depth of people's engagement and heritage-related activity. I think the key thing here as well, as the Heritage Lottery Fund, and heritage is a really difficult word for a lot of groups to understand, is that we don't actually define heritage. We encourage people to identify their own heritage and explain why it is most valued by themselves and other people. We want more people and a broader range of people to take an active part and encourage and support new and diverse groups to apply for funds. As an organisation, we're committed to increasing our diversity, not only through the governance of the organisation, our committee and trustees, but also through the staff and through the grants that we directly give. Part of my role as development manager for the South West and the team of development officers that support is enabled to make funding more accessible to a wider range of people. And we want to target additional and extra pre-application support towards areas that have received less funding from us in the past. For example, in the South West, we're strongly encouraging applications from a whole range of diverse communities and projects exploring a whole range of themes. So on a basic level, one of the reasons that lottery funders are seeking to increase diversity is our funds come from players of the National Lottery. 70% of the UK population buy at least one lottery ticket a month. HLF and other funders as part of that lottery family, and we'll hear from the Arts Council later, the income is generated from national lottery players, and it's imperative that the funding profile reflects those that kindly play and in turn support all the good causes. Diversity continues to be a driving focus in the key areas of grant-giving, governance and workforce of the HLF. And as I mentioned, the South West takes a broad view of heritage and the diverse communities that it wishes to support through staff resources and its grant-giving. This is both through grassroots activity of diverse community groups developing projects, but also through challenging the mainstream and large heritage organisations to work differently and with new groups. But I think importantly now, in a time of shocking news and an increase of hate crime, homophobia, racism, anti-Semitism, now is the time, there's no more important time for greater understanding of the impact of diverse communities and their contribution to the UK and the UK's heritage as an antidote to this ignorance. As I said, heritage is one of these words that kind of means everything and nothing at the same time. But we're keen to be able to display, share and celebrate the achievements of a whole range of diverse communities of the UK. The projects that we fund explore heritage in a variety of ways. Stories, memories, significant objects passed down from generations, looking at how past histories relate to our lives today. Some projects deal with complex and sometimes uncomfortable histories, such as what we've been hearing about transatlantic slavery. However, the key thread is they all involve people contributing to the dynamic and changing experience of living in the UK. The projects that HLF funds help celebrate the diversity of the UK and can be about local high streets, the history of Roman Britain, whether from a local group or a well-established heritage organisation. And we want to help more people engage with this. So as I said, we do not define heritage, but importantly, it can involve, and this is the bit where I think HLF is always seen as old buildings, museums, that traditional strong heritage. It's about what people identify with and want to celebrate or commemorate, what they value. So that's people's memories, experiences, oral histories, histories of people, communities, languages, dialects, cultural traditions, stories, festivals, food, craft, music, dance and costumes, everything. This is a project which based in Bristol with the South Asian community, which is a really good example of where HLF has funded an activity-based project exploring stories, memories and cultural traditions. Desh means motherland or homeland in Hindi and Urdu, and this aims to bring several generations of South Indians and Asians in Bristol together to record and identify this shared heritage. There was training for volunteers to collect traditional folk songs, poetry and stories, and the childhood memories of the older generations of the area. So there was volunteers developing skills, interviewing and research, and putting together this oral history. And there was a large-scale touring exhibition. This was in partnership, and I think this is a theme that will come through. Partnership is a really strong way of looking and exploring this history. Partnerships with Bristol Museum and Art Galleries, to be able to develop this and to tour it around the area. This project picture might be recognisable by a few people. And what I must do, I've chosen projects in here that are not represented through the speeches tomorrow or talks, because I didn't want to steal anyone's thunder of the project. So that's why I haven't included them. But some of the pictures might be familiar, and these are the ones that Guy will be talking about tomorrow. We funded projects that celebrate cultural diversity and share untold stories of migration and settlement and reveal how diverse communities have influenced and contributed to the UK's heritage over centuries. Some projects have uncovered hidden histories and told uncomfortable truths. As a funder, HLF will not shy away from this and encourages facing the many views of history, especially those that tell the untold and uncover the hidden. Through the funding, there are very many ways in which this can be undertaken. Some of this is through telling stories. Many interesting histories, for example, are yet to be widely shared. They can be hidden in archives, local papers. And actually, as we've just seen through that website, through the streets, the place that we walk through on a daily basis and take no notice of. They're written into the buildings and street names, so focusing in this area can be a good way for local groups to relate this very local history to the broader themes and stories. A lot of projects will unpick intergenerational stories and bringing the younger and older members together to share in the past and make it relevant and that shared experience to today. And we're very keen to support ways in which through exploring this history and heritage can be undertaken in a creative manner through oral history. It could even be through arts-based and performance-based activity. This is a project, again, in Bristol, and this was a partnership between the Record Office and a group called Out Stories. And this was preserving the heritage of lesbian, gay and bisexual and transgender communities of Bristol by collecting personal reminiscence and memorabilia of the city's, particularly at this time, hidden heritage. So there's unearthed material, including original programmes from very early Bristol Pride festivals, early documentation and actually the archive of the Bristol Gay Switchboard, Gay West and Campaign for Homosexual Equality. Developed was a touring exhibition, as well as a static exhibition that was hosted at the Record Office. And another picture I've stolen from Guy's project here, which you'll hear tomorrow about with the Exeter's multicultural history. Funders like labels and boxes. It is a way to be able to target people and to be able to explain the areas in which you want to put additional funding in. But actually, ultimately, is that helpful? It is about diversity of funding across the board. But these are some of the areas where we're really keen to explore and unpack hidden histories from these groups. But another way of seeing that in terms of defining identity is around race, sexuality, gender, ability, interest and age. But ultimately it's achieving level access and tackling inequality on many levels. The South West in particular will need to respond to different levels of inequality compared to other regions. For example, Cornwall identifies as 20% of the population as disabled. The South West as a whole has the highest proportion and percentage of older retired people. There's a high percentage in the South West of over 16s with no qualifications, low wages, deprivation and poverty. There's dispersed communities of all types with increased marginalisation and lack of support. So it's important as a region and as a funder that we respond to regional senses of inequality and tackle that through our funding. This is a project which is challenging what racial identity is and means, both to older generations and to younger generations. This was through intergenerational activity and sharing. This examined inequality and racial identity over time. Has this changed? Is it better? Is it worse? Black South West Network ran a 2-year project to capture how different generations of BME communities in Bristol express their racial and ethnic origins. The project explored the impact on communities who came to the UK and found themselves labelled as BME. What did that actually mean, BME as a label? And there's a really, really good video with this, which actually no one identified with this. It's just what people get called, especially by funders. It is worth looking at the Black South West Network, at the digital stories, and they also help to produce toolkits for other groups to take on board if they want to explore aspects like that in their own projects. Of course, many projects, particularly HLF projects, and that's where HLF are generally known for, the buildings, the historic buildings, the museums, the objects and collections. How do traditional aspects of heritage run by established organisation? For example, it's been really interesting to hear at the beginning through Nicola how the Plymouth History Centre is challenging to set up a wide range of panels to get a diverse voice into the display and collections there. How can larger and those established organisations provide clear opportunities for diversity, inclusion and equality? This is a slide from the National Trust at Durham Park, just outside of Bristol. The HLF funded here this expanded rooftop tour. They were doing the work to the roof anyway, but it was an expansion to people to access seeing the work happened. So you can, not only could you access the rooftop to see the repair works, but you could walk around the whole roof. What's particularly special about this one was that this was fully accessible to those in wheelchairs, which was very highly valued, and the praise and positive comments received from people with mobility difficulties who are often restricted in what they can access was excellent and often moving. Ensuring that people of all abilities can have access and an enjoyable experience is really important, and understanding what it is that they need means proper consultation. People with sight impairments, for example, don't necessarily want an audio guide. They may want to use their hearing to help them navigate around a room. Ask what they would want to see. The heritage ability, that's such a hard word to say, it's not an accessible title, is improving the experience at heritage sites of people with limited mobility, learning disability, autism, and from the deaf community, so they can understand and interpret their local heritage. So staff and volunteers are being trained to deliver disability-friendly heritage activities, open days, deaf-friendly events, and chilled talks of people with autism. A great opportunity to share and learn skills and support heritage and access to heritage. I'm just going to very quickly talk about some of the funding. These are some of the kind of main grant schemes that we've got, especially for accessing funding in a short-term way. The key thread of HLF is that learning about heritage and engaging with heritage runs through all grants, whether at the smallest level at £3,000 up to multiple million. One of the targeted programmes that we have at the moment is the First World War Then and Now. And this is a funding stream which is all about how the First World War affected millions across the globe and shaped the world we live in. The centenary is a chance to understand the war, uncover its stories and explore what it means to us today. We fund projects across the UK that focus not just on the events of 1914 to 1918, but the lasting changes the war brought about, the experience of soldiers, the role of women, the places affected by war. We want to support projects that present new and different perspectives of war, bringing to light previously untold stories, groups of communities across the UK, looking at different experiences of different communities and groups. This was a project that really looked into the story of male impersonators and the theatre scene around during the First World War, and the role of women, and often lesbian women within this. The photograph here is some musical performers such as Gwen Farrow and Nora Blaney, and they were known as the bad girls of the family. This included visiting of graveyards, archive research, transcribing and oral history of older members. This is a nice project as well, where there's a continuation and link of funding of HLF looking at research and understanding and drawing out the history of these people to then support an Arts Council funded performance that related to it. So how funders can also come together to support a broader range of stories and engagement. As I mentioned, outcomes is what underpins everything that we make our decisions on. It's the difference that is made with lottery money, the impact, the benefits. And we look around that under heritage, people and communities. I'm not going through all of them, but I just wanted to highlight how we can fund activity-based projects that really draw out projects wanting to explore those diverse themes, better interpreted and explained, identified and recorded. That's a really key one for drawing out all the hidden histories that may be buried. Outcomes for people, learned about heritage, that's in every single project all the way through. But changed attitudes and behaviour, that's an outcome that often comes with exploring and trying to uncover and unpick different views of heritage. And outcomes for communities. I'm going to draw attention to this, and more and a wider range of people would have engaged with heritage. And this is what we're hearing from the Plymouth History Centre in there'll be more people coming through the door. Great, so what? It's the wider range of people engaging with heritage. How can you challenge and get different role and profile? And this is coming from us as a funder within our own organisation, but completely from the top. Our Chair of Trustees and everyone is behind that this is the fundamental driving force for us as a funder now to get more, and especially the different people involved with heritage. And this was a project based in Bournemouth, which was uncovering personal testimony and oral history from people with learning disabilities that were based in institutional care. As you can see, various hospitals, various houses where people had lived. So it recorded these heritage memories and experiences and the testimonies of the people in the Bournemouth area. This was a partnership with the Dorset History Centre and was really powerful and moving to actually really uncover stories that had never been told, and to communities that people thought this probably wasn't important to tell these stories. And it's what next? I mean, I hope that through some of this it's kind of challenged some of the stuff that HLF does. You know, whilst it is great to be able to support large-scale projects, it is about people ultimately, and people taking ownership of their own heritage. History months, whether it be LGBT History Month, Black History Month, shouldn't be seen as a month in February or a month in October. Perhaps it's the start of a year-long dialogue or even longer with communities about their history and heritage. But actually it can be a really useful hook or link into developing projects or becoming a focus for activity. So next year, for example, there's the 50th anniversary of the partial decriminalisation of male homosexuality. In previous years, we've used anniversaries as hooks for this. Just hearing about the abolition of transatlantic slavery and the projects that were developed there. We've looked at projects with the 50th anniversary of Jamaican independence, 20th anniversary of the Disability Discrimination Act, for example, the First World War, of course, and many others. It's not for us to define what anniversaries are important, but the other way around. We've looked at projects even that have been the 20th anniversary of local charities and hospices, for example. So we really want, for you to start thinking around ideas about other areas which, you can uncover that heritage. And as I said, with grants from £3,000 upwards, to be able to access that funding in a short and timely manner can help support that. And, with the team, with the development team in place to help support projects coming through to make those projects, ideas, actually into a reality. That's it. Thank you.